So, as the marketplace changes and everything moves forward, collaborations have become absolutely essential for everything, especially in the world of perfumery, and this is where Sixth Sense really comes on board. So I'm going to ask these guys some questions, and please, anytime anyone wants to ask a question, just like school, put your hand up. Okay, so starting with you, Chandler, how do you approach your craft? When you're curating a museum, how do you choose what perfume should go into a museum?
It's easier to answer just sort of broadly. The philosophy of the museum, am I holding this too close, too far? Can you guys hear me? Yeah, is it correct? Okay. I'm not the curator. I left the New York Times in December of 2010, and I am at the Museum of Arts and Design, which is right over there. You can come visit us. It's at the, how's it going? It's at the museum. It's on the south side of Columbus Circle, and it's terrific. It's a wonderful museum. And what I did was I proposed to them a department of olfactory art as one of the departments, and they said yes. And it's terrific, and I'm very pleased to say that we actually have a final date. I'm not supposed to announce it because the PR people are complete control freaks, which I guess is what PR people do. That we have a date for the opening exhibition, and the exhibition is called The Art of Scent, and what it will be, The Art of Scent 1889 to 2012, because it will be this year. And so what Levi's asking me is about how we're going to go about choosing not just olfactory works of art, they will be viewed as works of art. For this exhibition, for future exhibitions, the fundamental philosophy of the Department of Olfactory Art is to raise perfume and to have scent recognized as an artistic medium equal to paint, music, sound, if you will, sculpture, architecture, and to place it within the art historical framework. We are going to be using a vocabulary that is going to be classical art historical, impressionism, romanticism, neoclassicism, mannerism. You can ask Rodrigo about all these things. He knows everything about everything. And that's how we go about choosing them. And we're going to be choosing works, I'm going to be choosing works as a curator that are representative of aesthetic schools in art history.
Great. Question for Rodrigo. So how do you go around, now that you're the senior perfumer at Givaudan, to do the collaborations? How does that work?
Well, I have to say I approach it with the heart. For me, perfume is the result of a feeling. So sometimes you really feel strongly about it. Sometimes you have to work around it, but it has to come from the gut, from the heart. And perfume has been part of my life, and I want to express that all the time. I consider it a craft, a high craft, and for which you have to hone your ability and hone your feelings. But at the same time, I always want to feel it. And whenever I'm giving a brief or whenever I approach a little accord that I'm making, I want to feel it and to make it happen emotionally.
What is this fragrance more than who is this fragrance? They are not looking for the brand too much, they are looking for the creator, for the concept. I have to say the Sixth Sense is one of the most amazing examples in the world because it's coming from an idea that is the heart is the soul of the brand, and many other brands are coming, and I wish that we will have a very big and important putting together.
Thank you. And talking about how, now Reina, question for you, the amazing artist. You did a Little Wonder video for Sixth Sense. So how do you translate such a traditional form that you normally would need to smell it to get that image and understanding onto video?
Really wonderful in their approach with the different filmmakers because they gave us a lot of creative freedom, so you didn't feel compelled to communicate necessarily someone else's idea. They wanted us to go into our personal stories, imagery, and they had faith, a certain amount of belief that if we brought our images and told a story or were inspired by the same things that the performer was inspired by, that there would be a connection, which that was really courageous and definitely has created some wonderful pieces that you can see on the website. I was just thinking about how the visual artists and the filmmakers are bringing something personal and kind of bridging a product might have to go through a certain amount of business thinking and marketing, and when you bring a visual artist or a filmmaker and pair them up with somebody who's created something that you can't see, it's such a wonderful place for this kind of personal impulse and passion of certain kinds of people. I think that's what I really enjoyed about making that film, and yeah, because then it's personal.
So Eric, with lookbooks, I mean, you guys basically bring up all the creative together. How much collaboration do you do that in reference to the people who are trying to employ and bringing in the artists, like the perfumer, to the photographer, to the stylist?
I mean, obviously, we can all agree with the creative process. You draw a lot from everything around you, so your experiences and people that you travel with, and I think a big part of the learnings for us is that we know that consumers are very smart. They're not going to be drawn to traditional advertising, just a print ad or just a commercial. So to be able to take everyone's input and really understand, the 360 of how people experience things, I think has been super, super important. So to have, photographers' input from the visual, and then even, we started working with a lot of musicians and people that do, the visual starring. So, even for me, I come from a musical background as well, so even the way that I experience a lot of visuals, I kind of tend to think of them in different ways that, you might hear something, so.
Is, for example, represented for us by collaboration we have with Agonist, for example, from Sweden. We work very close to the blood concept from Italy, so more and more we are working together to try to create a brand that has a good soul, a good representation from the creators, and also the characteristics to be able to succeed in the market. So more and more we are working closer and closer to the creators.
I actually thought of a collaboration I think is incredibly important, phenomenally important. I'm gonna mention Carlos as well, because Carlos did something that I think is spectacular. Carlos has a degree. What's your degree in? What is it? Preservation. So preservation history, and it's primarily around buildings. You work with the World Monument Fund, WMF, right? And it was from Colombia, right? So his degree from Colombia, and applying that to the perfumes, historically, the buildings that Rodrigo and Jan built, and it's been spectacular for me. I'm actually hoping to collaborate with them on something. We're working on a project. The other collaboration I think is very interesting, and I saw Kate and Nick here, so I'll mention Givaudan and IFF. They're actually the two companies that I really know about. There's a collaboration that goes on in perfume that is absolutely spectacularly interesting and important for the world, and it is the collaboration between the creators, the people who furnish the scents, and these are nomadic tribesmen in Namibia, and they are farmers in Laos and in Morocco, and the things that they grow, and the way that they grow them, and the materials that they produce, and the way that those are then processed by the raw materials people at Givaudan and IFF, and made into raw materials that Rodrigo can then put in his perfumes that are commissioned. I mean, Rodrigo's the artist, and he has the patrons of the arts, who are Estee Lauder and LVMH, and the niche brands who then commission these works. The works that you actually buy, the works that Rodrigo creates, are intimately connected to farmers in valleys in Vietnam and in Java and Sumatra, and in the forests of Venezuela. Givaudan has a fascinating project that involves tonka bean in Venezuela, and I think that that's a collaboration that's really astonishing. And we think of this as these beautiful brands, and we think of this is what people see, but it really, really is connected to the world, and every bottle of perfume contains the world and the lives of these people.
Hi, you were mentioning earlier that someone wanted a fragrance to smell like their salad, and obviously I saw Salad Carboza recently put out a fragrance. Do you see more possible collaborations with the restaurant world?
Absolutely, I think the nose and the taste buds are completely connected. I, for one, I'm not a perfumer who uses a lot of sugary scents. When I have ever worked with a wine taster or a chef, incredible things happen. Like I said, the taste buds and the nose being incredibly related, there's a trove of treasures there, absolutely.
I think the ultimate collaboration is going to be the most obvious thing. It's the one that's right under our noses, and it's the one that has never been put forward. I think that the collaborator the future of perfume, the future collaborator is actually the perfumer, is actually the artist. And I think that is what is going to, that is the collaboration that we don't know about. Obviously, I'm completely self-interested in this. I've made my big gamble on this being so, but I think that we don't know about that collaboration, and that's the fundamental collaboration that's always going on, and it's the thing that the public doesn't know about, and it's fascinating. And that's what creates the art, between the patron of the art and the perfumer.
Well, that's remain to be seen. I do think that a little bit what we're witnessing right now, which is this emergence and this solidification of the niche, the artistic brands, are a little bit speaking of that. I think people are looking for that kind of product, for that kind of quality, for that kind of feeling. Honest to God, there's nothing wrong with, let's say, a mass market fragrance or a celebrity fragrance or a commercial fragrance. But it's another message, it's another language, and these brands are talking to another kind of people who were maybe a little weary about, that kind of commercial thing, and the texture and the feel of these products are maybe the first chapter of that book.
There's been a lot of celebrity fragrances made with collaboration. Has anyone ever done one with an electronic artist, like a DJ? Because that just seems like the most obvious thing to do for a collaboration, like a Tiesto or a David Guetta. Does anyone have anything like that and works and heard about it?
There are raves where I'm sure you guys all know this, there are raves where they release scent. That's been done for years.
Yeah, there's something coming there. It's kind of an interesting world. It speaks to a lot of people. There is a very, very intrinsic, beautiful language there, and I've been trying to do something with that.
And I think that goes also back to what you were saying earlier. People like to understand what's inspiring the scent, or if there is a recognizable, name or personality that's tied to a scent. I think it just helps really, as the wearer, the consumer, you understand kind of what that aesthetic is, what that emotion behind it is. So I think that's speaking to it.
And I'm curious if you think, as a collaboration, fragrance and scent pairs better with purely abstract arts, without words, music, or color, sculpture, whatever, or verbal arts, verbal creations as well, or it makes no difference.
You can apply the invisibility of the perfumes in many different aspects of the art. So I don't see, frankly speaking, any limits to create a perfume for a poem, or a perfume for a frame with a beautiful piece of art inside, or to create also a perfume for a movie or for a song. So I believe that if you have the right perfumers that really keep the soul of the project inside, and speaking a lot with who create the poem or who create the art, and going deeply in the project, I think everything is possible.
In my own particular case, visually speaking, I'm very interested about many painters, but I'm going to mention, for example, Caravaggio is a painter that enriches me and inspires me a lot. In the written word, there's a Mexican poet, his name is Carlos Pellicer. Every single verse he writes is a little perfume. And I can tell you many of the things I have been working on have a lot of Carlos Pellicer inside, so it goes both ways.
Thank you. So please give a round of applause to these amazing people.